A white cop pointed his gun at a grieving black man at a funeral in front of the coffin of his father. He didn't know the man was a four-star Army general, but the nation saw everything. And for the first time in history, a cop would be sentenced to life in prison for pointing a gun, not pulling the trigger. "Drop the weapon." That voice, sharp, commanding, cut through the still air like a gunshot itself. It was supposed to be a funeral, not a standoff. Under a cloudy Virginia sky, mourners stood frozen, staring in disbelief as a white police officer leveled his service pistol directly at the chest of a black man. Not just any man. A man in a full military uniform. A man with 4 stars glinting off his shoulder. A man who was there to bury his father. His name, General Terrance Watkins, the highest-ranking African-American in the U.S. Army at the time, decorated, dignified, respected. But none of that mattered. Not to Officer Greg Mallory, because to Mallory in that moment all he saw was a black man walking toward a flag-draped coffin. What happened next would ignite a firestorm across the nation, dismantle an entire police department, and send one officer to prison for life. But more than that, it would force America to ask itself, when even a general isn't safe, who is? Let me take you back to where it all began. It was 10:42 a.m. at Arlington National Cemetery. Rows of white marble tombstones stretched endlessly like a silent army standing guard. A gentle wind swept through, rustling the flags placed at each grave. It was supposed to be a sacred day, one of remembrance, not reckoning. Sergeant Major Leon Watkins, a 30-year Army veteran, was being laid to rest with full honors. The ceremony had drawn dignitaries, soldiers, and family from across the country, and leading them was his son, General Terrance Watkins. He had flown in from Germany just hours earlier, still in jet lag, still grieving. He arrived in a black government SUV, stepping out with the weight of grief pressing on his chest. Dressed in his formal Army blues, every crease sharp, every medal earned. He carried a carefully folded American flag, one he planned to place on his father's casket. That was the moment Officer Greg Mallory saw him. Stationed near the entrance to the cemetery for traffic detail, Mallory had been with the Arlington Police Department for over a decade. No history of violence, but a reputation for being overly aggressive, especially when it came to certain neighborhoods. Mallory later claimed he saw someone approaching the ceremony quickly with a concealed object. In the footage captured by a teenage family member, Watkins is clearly walking at a steady pace, not fast, not erratic. He's holding a triangularly folded flag against his chest. But Mallory doesn't see a flag. Or maybe he refuses to. He steps forward, shouts, "Stop, drop it now." General Watkins, startled, instinctively raises his hands, flag and all. He opens his mouth to speak, but he never gets the chance. Mallory draws his weapon. Gasps erupt. The crowd flinches. An elderly woman screams. A little boy drops the small wreath he was holding. And then silence. Watkins doesn't move. He simply stares. His face a mix of disbelief and pain. His voice calm but firm. "Officer, I am Major General Terrance Watkins of the United States Army. This is my father's funeral. I am holding a burial flag." Mallory doesn't lower his gun. Several seconds pass. They feel like hours. Only when another officer, a black sergeant named Williams, rushes in and physically pushes Mallory's arm down does the tension break. The gun is lowered, but the damage is done. The moment is already on Instagram, already clipped on TikTok, already playing on CNN. Within hours, hashtags flood social media. #even generals aren't safe. Our justice. For Watkins, pointed at power. News anchors call it the Arlington incident. Civil rights leaders call it something else. A glimpse into how deeply rooted racial bias truly is. By nightfall, the governor of Virginia holds a press conference. He promises a swift and transparent investigation. The Arlington Police Department places Officer Mallory on administrative leave, but no charges are filed. Not yet. Meanwhile, General Watkins disappears from public view. He doesn't give interviews, doesn't post on social media. For 6 days, he stays in a quiet hotel room in D.C., surrounded by silence and sorrow. Then on the 7th day, he speaks. In a press statement read by his attorney, he says, "I am a soldier. I've spent my life defending this country. But on the day I buried my father, I was not seen as a general. I was seen as a threat. That should terrify every American. That line echoes. Loud, sharper than bullets, more honest than any report. Pressure mounts. Protests swell. Outside the Arlington police precinct, thousands gather with candles and signs. Inside, Mallory insists he acted according to protocol. But the footage says otherwise. Investigators find that Mallory failed to use proper identification procedures, failed to warn his superiors, and worst of all, admitted in private texts later recovered that he thought something didn't feel right about a black guy in medals. That text becomes the turning point. Federal prosecutors step in. Officer Greg Mallory is charged with attempted aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, official misconduct, and under the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, racially motivated use of force under color of law. The trial captivates the nation. Every network carries it live. People watch as General Watkins takes the stand in full uniform. He doesn't shout. He doesn't accuse. He simply recounts. With every word, the courtroom falls deeper into silence. At one point, Watkins looks directly at Mallory and says, "You didn't just point that gun at me. You pointed it at every black soldier who ever wondered if his uniform would protect him from the country he serves." There is no outburst, no dramatic music, just silence, and then tears. The jury deliberates for only 6 hours. They find Mallory guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge herself, a Navy veteran, delivers a scathing rebuke. "This court will not tolerate bias dressed in authority. You disrespected a man, a family, a funeral, and an entire country watching." Mallory is sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The aftermath is seismic. Across the country, 37 states implement new training requirements for officers stationed near military or state ceremonies. The Department of Defense introduces a policy mandating liaisons with local law enforcement during funerals of active or retired personnel. Congress passes the Watkins Act, requiring every public funeral with military honors to be treated as a federal protected event with DOJ oversight if racial profiling is suspected. But perhaps most powerfully, America listens. For once, it listens. General Watkins returns to active duty, but he changes. He begins speaking more openly about race leadership and identity in the military. He launches a mentorship initiative for young black officers. He visits police academies, giving lectures titled "Respect Beyond Rank." At the next Memorial Day, he returns to Arlington. He wears civilian clothes, carries 2 flags, one for his father, and one for those whose service could never shield them from suspicion. He lays them down, stands in silence, and whispers, "This is not just for him, it's for all of us. If this story moved, you don't let it disappear in your scroll. Like this video, if you believe dignity should never be questioned, no matter the skin, no matter the uniform, comment your thoughts. What would justice look like in your community? Share this with someone who still thinks racism ends at the rank of general. Subscribe to Tim's Stories, where truth is told, raw and real. Because in a world full of silent stories like this, scream to be heard.